Guys, yeah. So I think this is our second live with Akhil Dua. We had a chat last year. We discussed again. I think a whole range of topics after our Kangatse 2 climb, and
Yeah.
I had the pleasure of being there with the Trekla team, and you know, he was there, Akhil Paji was there, and this year he is preparing for the Island Peak, which is coming up in September, and I think a few of them will be heading to Nepal to climb there. I can just say, being there, I remember speaking to you before leaving for my ABC trek in April, and you obviously said, "Jao jaake jara everything go set everything else up for us." And I think we were 2 nights in Dengboche, from where you can obviously see the island peak. It's rare. I think you guys will also probably set your base camp somewhere over close to Dengboche.
Yeah.
So I remember watching that and then also seeing an excitement. Okay, how exciting it's going to be for you guys to go all the way to Everest base camp, come back to Dengboche, and then climb a peak where you've already sort of acclimatized for I think a number of days. Plus also being on that iconic trail. So yeah, very excited. And another sort of I'm getting images from our summit night, because tonight we have a group at the Friendship Peak, and there it's actually the summit night tonight. So I think they'll probably be resting and heading off to the summit push in another hour and a half or something. So
God, I mean,
wishing them all the best.
yeah.
And yeah, so I think it's I think I was thinking about that, and I just went back to our summit night of Kangyatse, where I think this was the time that we started to get ready around 9. It was like pin drop silence, and then it took about an hour and a half, and I think it's an incredible experience. So a bit bummed out that I won't be able to experience that with you in September for the Island Peak, but hopefully again.
Yeah, summit night से मुझे कुछ याद आया. Before we get into the good discussion, मुझे ये बताओ कि जब हम डिसेंड कर रहे थे, आप और मैं, दो पंजाबी, तो हम क्या बातें करते थे?
You were talking about all that was to come the next night once we reach Leh, कि हमारे पेट में क्या जाएगा, what are we gonna smell, what are we gonna taste, all that we gonna.
और दो पंजाबियों के मुंह से सबसे पहले क्या निकला था?
बटर चिकन.
बटर चिकन, भाई बटर चिकन खाएंगे नीचे जाके, मतलब यहाँ पे like 14-15 hours without food, water, just completed Kangyatse summit, और उतरते समय मैं और चेतन पाजी यार बटर चिकन खाने की इच्छा हो रही है यार. ये नहीं कि प्रोटीन बार मिल जाए, कहीं से पानी मिल जाए, हम अपनी दुनिया में है कि यार ये तो हो गया, अब कल ना रात को सबसे पहले पहुंच के ना बटर चिकन खाना है.
ट्रू, अपनी दुनिया में थे और गिरते गिरते भी जा रहे थे. We were arresting each other. We had quite a lot of adventure actually. Obviously talking about mountaineering and all the things that happen, going up is just half the way. आपको वापस नीचे भी आना होता है सही सलामत, and I think that coming down over, I would say, a fairly non-technical peak was also pretty. You have to stay in your senses to be able to do. So, yeah.
Because you're famished. So I mean, you're running on probably what is the last of your reserves, and after that is just just sheer willpower that is going to carry you. So and I think it's what happens is that it's extremely difficult to replicate those situations in urban life. How do you train for that? So I mean, the body is already in shock of climbing 10-12 hours, and now mentally you won the battle, but the battle has just begun, because unless you make it down safely, there was no point in going for that war. So that's really where, like you said, most accidents happen. That's really when we need to be most careful and actually prepare mentally and physically for that downhill?
Yeah, I think that's a great conversation to start with. A sort of a flashback and some lessons to talk about. Coming to something that has recently been added for the community, and thanks to Akhil for actually coming up with with that initiative. So it's called the Trek Library, and you could call it a blog, you could call it a community forum or a platform. I think I'll let him sort of, talk about it more, or sort of give it a sort of a definition or a tagline. But him, from what I've known, obviously he has a full-time business. He's just been passionate and extremely involved with trekking and mountaineering now. So I think he's just driving his passion to a whole new level. So Akhil Paji, if you can start with talking about what the Trek Library is and where did this idea sort of stem from?
As a trekker, and I think any trekker would relate to what I'm about to say, is that we go to the mountains for about 10 to 15 days in a year. That's
right.
That's a decent size or actually the average trek. So we enjoy being in the mountains for 10 days, and we actually dream about the mountains the remaining 355 days of the year. Ask any trekker, "Arey yaar, pahad mein jana hai." So, that's a constant conversation for 99% of the year. You're only in the actual act for 10 days. So that was a big realization for me, that here is an activity that can actually keep you so engrossed and so involved in your mind and in your training that you're willing to spend majority of the year just for those 10 days. So that's really where I thought that, okay, I should find a way to be connected to the mountains. That's how the idea of Trek Library came around. So Trek Library is it's an online resource for in-depth knowledge on trekking, mountaineering, soon running. Anybody who has adventure in their DNA would be the right person to read Trek Library. There are two components at the moment of Trek Library. One is the blog, where I write a few articles every week and I post on the blog. There's extensive how-to guides. There's extensive guides on different treks you should go on, with details of that location. And then the other side is the premium content, which is the once a week newsletter that I send out to subscribers. So if you go to treklibrary.com, you can fill out your small form with your email and your name, and then that subscribes you to the free newsletter. So even though it's premium content, the subscription is free. So that's the two sides or two ways that I have approached Trek Library. The seed that you were asking, or why did I start, has two or three different. It actually has three angles that led me to where I am right now. The first is that I enjoy writing. It clears my head when I write something down. And over the years, because I've been writing consistently, I've become decent at it. So that's one. The second is that more and more people are going on treks and going on 6,000, 7,000, even 8,000 meter peaks. So there's the demand, which is a lot of people going, taking on the sport. There's a supply from my end of writing more. And then the third item, which I think is the most important, is that I genuinely really enjoy being around trekkers. I think they are the most interesting category of people on the planet, because they have found a way to balance their life, their work, and their hobbies. So when I meet a trekker, I am in a different world, because there's so many common traits कि जब बैठ के बातचीत होती है तो you're like, अरे यार, I think I've known this person for a while, because you share so many common traits. You know, the training that goes into trekking, the mindset, the sacrifice that you're making, of leaving your family behind, leaving your work, leaving your friends, leaving your other hobbies. There's a lot of sacrifice that goes into trekking and mountaineering if you keep on doing it.
Yes.
So when I meet a trekker, A, I have so much respect, and then B, I genuinely enjoy having a conversation about anything with that person. So to me, it was fairly simple that, okay, if I am going to write, I'm going to write about mountains because that's what I enjoy and I want to be connected with them. And I'm going to write for the mountaineering community and trekking community because that's the community I enjoy being around with. So that's how Trek Library was born.
Fantastic. So talking about trekkers and how interesting they are, just a small sort of diversion from the topic. Where are the most interesting trekkers that you have met or found?
Where?
Yeah. Like on a trip or just a casual conversation somewhere. कहाँ पे मिले?
So I've been very, very lucky in the sense that when I started trekking, my first trek was Stoke Kangri, I think way back in 2012 or 13. And out of 25, this always happens, right? You go on a trek, there's like 20, 25 people, and there's like 4 or 5 people जिनसे आपके साथ ऐसा होता है कि यार इसके साथ ही बैठ के खाना खाना है, इसके साथ ही चलना है, इसी से बातें करनी है. So usually what happens is that the pattern breaks once you go home. You lose touch, you don't keep in touch, or life takes over. I am really good at keeping in touch with very, very selective people. So how I think about it is, okay, if I have gone on a trek and I like those 4 people, I'm going to make sure those 4 people come and trek with me again on a different trek. And once we 5 go on that trek, we are going to find 2 or 3 हमारे जैसे अजूबे जो हमको ही पसंद आएंगे और उनको हम पसंद आएंगे. So I add those to the mix. And then over the years, over the past 10 years, now I think our Trekla or mountain men group is now 17 or 18. And it ranges from an 11-year-old child to a 65-year-old man. You've met both of them on Kangyatse. So I really see myself as a collector of amazing people that I want to surround myself with. And when I bring them, or when, let's say I trek with you and you bring your cousin who also is like you, there's a very, very good chance that other. So there was Sam, there was Viru Paji, and then there's another friend of ours, Lalit Pant. These 3 I met in Stoke, and then in Goyachala I met Karan and Sagar and Abhishek, who's my tent mate. So every year, I've found these amazing humans. And, Chetan, we talk every single day. Not like on the phone, but there's some communication that's happening. Because we plan to trek again this year. So we're thinking about how to go, where to go, who to go with, iski planning. So I talk to my trekking community or my trekking friends more than I speak to my parents. That's the best way I can put it.
I think this is very interesting and very rare because I have also been trekking for almost a decade now, but I have never met. I think probably I've done it in close groups and all, and I haven't really joined like a public sort of an open group that's open to people. So maybe that's why. But I don't think even the ones who used to trek together, the way you guys have bonded. So I think that the kind of match of understanding, yes, what being in the outdoors mean for you, to find those sort of people, and to actually live that every day and be so consistent about it. I think that's very rare. So this community, this like the Trek library that you have sort of created, are you trying to cater to who's the audience? Like, are you trying to create a community over a period of time? Slowly, how let's say you're creating a narrative or like trying to share a certain thought process of being in the outdoors following the sport and the activity, or is it going to be so? And this question, the kind of content you're making, because the kind of content you're making is something that you don't normally find online, right? You
Yeah.
go to a blog and maybe someone has been on a long trek or something, and they've just put in their trek review. Okay, day one we did this, day two we did this, this was great, that was great. But you have sort of, I think the kind of topics you're touching, that calls for a very, very different kind of an audience. So a bit about that.
Okay, so I'll address the latter question first, because I think that would lead to who is reading or who's listening. My The way I've thought about creating content for Trek Library is extremely selfish. I am only following my own curiosity. There is no roadmap. There is no blueprint that says that on first week I'm going to write about X, and on the second week I'm going to write about Y. And I'll give you an example. So after we did our Kangyatse trip, when we came back, Sam and I rode his motorcycle, and we went to the Patthar Sahib Gurdwara as a way to say thank you for bringing me and my team members and the people that I met back safely. That was my way of, our way of saying thank you and gratitude from on behalf of the team. While we were in the Gurdwara, I saw this poster or this image that had it's called Udasis, which is basically journeys that Guru Nanak had taken over his 45-50-year-old lifespan. And this entire journey was on foot, right? So here I am watching this image, and Sam is just filming me and just filming around. And I turn around to him and I say, Sam, the original trekker. So think about it. I mean, this is 500 years back. This man traveled all the way to Mecca, and he went all the way to Mount Kailash on foot. I mean, think about it. That thought, Chetan, carried from that day until last month. So think about 8 months of time that thought was in my head. I bought books, I read articles, I went to the library to find historical pages, I contacted experts, I contacted authors who've written books on him, and then I wrote an article that I thought would be something that me and the community would like to read. So 7 to 8 months of research went into that one article. I'm not saying every article is like that. What I'm trying to share with you is that I am only following my own curiosity. So it could be adventures of Guru Nanak one week, and then it could be why we need to mix salt in our water post our run. So, it's something that I did not know. How did I go about learning about it? What is it doing for me? I document that and I share it. And the logic behind is that if I liked it, if I learned from it, if I found it useful, there's a very, very good chance that others like me will also enjoy it or learn from it or find it valuable. So that's how the content writing is going. There is no set formula. That's how I'm approaching the content creation. It keeps me very involved. It keeps me excited of what is about to come, because I am learning as I'm sharing, and that's how I'm sharing my documentation. The audience, Chetan, is you and me. It is an educated male or female who enjoys going on a trek once or twice a year. Most of these trekkers are in a corporate job, so IT, pharma, bank, and they're doing well in their career. They're ambitious and they're driven. The age range can be from 20, 25 all the way up to 60, 65. They have also reached a level of maturity where they are able to balance their work, their home with their hobbies. They understand why that is important. And then they also enjoy complementary hobbies. So running, swimming, cycling, reading. So those are that's my, I don't like to call it target market. It's the community that I want to surround myself for and, create for. There are 3 or 4 things that are common in these people. One is exploration. That's why they go into nature and they trek and then they read and they do all of these things. The other thing that is common amongst me and you and this tribe is personal growth. We spend a lot of time thinking, reading, watching things that will help the mental part grow, the physical part grow, and grow in our careers, grow as a trekker, grow as a sports person. So the exploration part is there, the personal growth is there. Plus, I found that these people, obviously, to support their growth, they need to be active in their lifestyle. So they are into fitness also. So that's the 3 or 4 verticals that how I think about my how I think about the community. They like to explore, they like to take care of their bodies, and they are active in their personal growth. And that's how my content is also created and published. It falls in these 3-4 categories.
Right. I think this is incredible because I didn't know the backstory of that article, because I also read that piece that you shared, and the the original trigger, and with the kind of research that you have put in, I think that is incredible. I think that itself calls for a separate piece on what pieces of information you got from what kind of sources. So I think that itself is like sounds like a big project for what came on a single page.
Yeah, I was when I would read something, I would be so excited that I would want to pick up the phone and call one of my buddies. "Abhi yaar, teko malum hai, aisa hua tha. वो वहां गए थे." I'm like, "Oh, yaar, I can't ruin it for them. I have to, put the entire picture together for them to actually experience the thing."
Right.
So there were times I would be like, "Man, I wish I can talk to one person about it," because I felt like I had hit jackpot. That's how I felt about it.
So also, coming to a couple of pieces you wrote about, I think you're right. The kind of audience that you have defined, the kind of, I think, subscribers, you can say, or the people you're talking to, they have a certain sort of a trait, a certain personality set, certain behavior, and you've also been hitting on a lot of different topics, with educating about related to the outdoors, trekking up, or in this historic facts. What has the response been so far? To especially, let's say, obviously these such pieces that you write, and also a couple of pieces I read about the number of treks you have in your lifetime. Let's say, because that was a very intriguing calculation, interesting because people don't look at it that way. People go about these numbers. Okay, you have these many seconds and these many days to live, whatever, on an average. But if you actually look at quality time and the kind of what you're really seeing out there in the world, that's very, very limited out of whatever moments you're living in. So what has been the response to such kind of pieces?
Yeah, I'll first give a little context to that piece. The piece that you're referring to was called 4,000 Weeks, a countdown to a happy life. And that piece was inspired by a book I read, also called 4,000 Weeks, by this guy, Oliver Burkeman, which basically talks about the number of weeks we have on average on the planet. I read this book a few months back, and I had earlier, maybe 5 or 6 years back, I had read an article called The Tail End. It was on a blog called Wait But Why, and we should share the links to both. And when I read this book, it triggered something that must have been in my memory from 5, 6 years back. And I sat down and I started calculating the number of times I would realistically be in the mountains in the number of time that on average is left in my life. So the calculation goes this way. I'm 45, I'm healthy, I enjoy being in the mountains. I probably have 20 years of active lifestyle if I'm, if I'm going with the same kind of mindset and process. That's 20 years. Out of those 20 years, I think every 3-4 years there might be an emergency or something something might come that is just not avoidable. So that leaves me out of 20 years, maybe 15 to 16 years where I can go on a trek. 15, that's a very, very small number. So what happens is that whenever I am planning a trek with my trekking group and something comes up in my life, work, money, relationship, family, ye teen char cheezein you prioritize over your hobbies.
Yeah.
I go back to that calculation and I'm like, no, I have to find a way. क्योंकि मेरे पास सिर्फ 15 opportunities बची हुई हैं to really enjoy something that brings so much happiness to me. So you know what? I don't want to be a 70-year-old man sitting on his deathbed thinking, "Arey yaar, I wish I had gone on that trek, but instead I worked for 10 more days." So that really was the conversation. And you know what? I was like, if I am being influenced by this thought so much, and it's helping me decide so clearly why it is important, I think the community will also like it. So that is the premise for sharing that.
Right.
The other article that was very opinionated, but it had a lot of facts, was the first article that I published on the newsletter, and that article was called "Why Did So Many Trekkers Die in 2022?" Now, just the word death is, brings a lot of negative vibe to it, and it's not how you would want to open or launch your newsletter.
Right.
So people told me when I said I'm writing this, I think I'm going to start with, they were like, "Mat karna, it's going to fail." And I was like, "Kya fail, yaar? Matlab 30 to log hai. Matlab, it's like my closest 30 people who are opted into that newsletter. So what's going to happen? They're still going. They're die-hard supporters of my efforts. So wo to rahenge hi rahenge." So the first newsletter had 30 or maybe 50 people who had signed up. So I was like, "Kuch nahi hota yaar. These are my closest friends. I'm going to write." And then after people read it, they were like, "You know what? It's a heavy topic, but I'm glad you covered it," because they in turn have seen a lot of people make the same mistakes. And these mistakes are extremely, they're avoidable. So the response has been, it's been, okay, this is a bit heavy, but at least you are talking about it. At least you brought it to my attention. At least someone is addressing the elephant in the room के boss, बहुत लोग मर रहे हैं, कुछ ना कुछ करना पड़ेगा, नहीं तो हमारे घर वाले भी हमको नहीं जाना चाहिए. It's simple as that.
So actually, touching about this sort of this second piece that you wrote, which was actually the first piece of your blog. What were the reasons really? What did you, through your research and through your talk with, let's say, SDRF and everything, that in the people that you mentioned, what did it come out really? What was happening in these 2 years?
Yeah, so I'll give you some more context for that piece. The piece that you and I are discussing is the "Why Did So Many Trekkers Die in 2022?" So you can go online and you can check कि हुआ क्या था, but media will not share the details because nobody wants to come across as a bad trek operator or a bad individual. So there is very, very small information. If you want to go and आप कितना भी ढूंढ लोगे आपको ज़्यादा नहीं मिलेगा. All you will read is 4 trekkers went there, they got stuck here, and then the rescue went and found them. One was found alive and one was found dead. अरे क्यों मरा?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just the timeline. It's just the facts about.
Don't, yeah, don't give me this cut. Tell me exactly what happened so that I can tell my best friend कि भाई जब तू जाएगा तो तू थोड़ा संभल के रहना, वहां पे ऐसा होता है. So that really bothered me, and I got irritated, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to get to the source. मैं तो फोन लगाऊंगा सीधा SDRF वालों को और पता करता हूँ कि क्या है. So it took me 3-4 days. You know, they told me इनको contact करो, and then I got in touch with the media correspondent of SDRF. Now it's her job to reply cordially, and I positioned myself as a journalist. I'm like, I'm calling from Nagpur. I am the president of Trekla Adventure Foundation, and I write for this blah 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 magazine. I have certain questions for you. So now she was a little ke acha, you know, iska to jawab meko dena pade. And then she connected me to rescue officers who are part of SDR. So that is how the chain of events happened. Now, they had 4 things to tell me, and if you are watching right now, please, if you are going to learn anything, just listen to these 4 things that the SDRF rescue officers had to share. They were like the highest accidents or the number of deaths that's being caused in the trekking community is for 4 reasons. Number 1, trekkers are trying to save money. They are trying to save money by hiring inexperienced locals as guides. Suna hai, dekha hai apan ne, that's number 1. Number 2 is not accounting for bad weather. You know, उठे, दोस्तों ने प्लान बनाया, चलो, अरे कहाँ जा रहे हो, क्या लेके जा रहे हो, वहां पे क्या weather है, call somebody, find out from locals, ask a trek operator, you know, do your background research. The number 3rd thing that he told me is that not getting enough ration. जब आपने खाना नहीं लेके आया to plan for emergency days.
Right.
So you got stuck and you are like, "Arey, it's snowing, let's celebrate, let's eat more." They were like, "Boss, if it's snowing outside, that means you need to cut your ration into half. अगर आज snow हो रही है तो आज आधा ही खाना खाओ, क्योंकि कल भी snow हो सकती है, कल के लिए खाना ही नहीं बचेगा." So that's number 3. And then the 4th thing that they told me was this tendency of trekkers to push the guides or the trekking community, trekking operator to complete the trek even when the weather is bad. So, you know, the guide is saying, "Ki, boss, that's it. We are not going any further." And they're like, "Nahi, humne to paisa diya hai, hum to complete karke hi jayenge." So these are the 4 reasons that they told me are the biggest reasons why, you know, accidents happen.
So yeah, I think the sort of the reason that you've listed out, the number 1 reason, point number 1 is also, I think, sort of in a way explaining why the other 3 are happening. You know, because or probably the other way around. Probably you can also shift it to the other end, the people end, and say that because they are trying to look for, let's say, they are trying to cut costs or, you know, spend less, or trying to find someone, is what they choose a person who's not experienced. So obviously, when the person is not experienced, you know, he or she will not be able to guide you well. Okay, that what this trek or route is about, whether even you are ready as a person or not. Then obviously everything else, the logistics fall around it. You know, someone inexperienced will not know probably how much to carry, what kind of rations to carry, and everything. The one who's also being sort of, you know, कि ठीक है, पैसा कमाना है, लेके जाना है, I have to get these people over the top or whatever, is also then under the pressure of not really thinking about his sort of, you know, reputation, but more thinking about from the point of view of, oh, मेरे को पैसा मिल रहा है या नहीं मिलेगा, whatever, I need to do this.
Yeah.
And then all of these things happen. So that one point of cutting a corner is basically becoming a reason for all the other problems.
Yeah.
Like sort of a captive in a way, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Money, savings, you know, thinking that you only have so much, so, you know, let's just hire anybody and we'll wing it. You know, it's that attitude, kar lenge na, chalna. It's don't do it, man.
That is playing with nature and everything. I think that's what obviously experience teaches you. You can be lucky one time, but I think not every time. So yeah. So Coming to this why this piece about why so many trekkers died in 2022. Just generally talking about, and also I think this year even on the mountains, on the big mountains or elsewhere, because of weather or other reasons or whatever, there have been accidents. There have been accidents. There have been rescues. Things have been in the news. Uh, what do you feel? Generally is the general direction of where the trekking community and the mountaineering community are sort of headed, or let's say what have been based on the recent developments at least. What are your thoughts? What would you like to see and not see?
Yeah. I sent out a newsletter today. The subject of that newsletter was beyond footprints, conservation of chadar.
Yes.
And if you are a trekker, you should read it, because it talks about how within a decade we have managed to completely kill the Zanskar River. Okay, 2010 से पहले तक there would be like hardly people who would go there. There came a point, Chetan, where 1,000 people were walking on that frozen river. Can you think about it? Just soch ke dekho, 1,000 people every single day. We did the same thing in Stoke.
Yeah.
Okay. We went in masses. There was no regulations. There was no per day limit. And guess what happened? We screwed up the glacier. We literally sat on the glacier, and our shit basically flowed down to the rivers, and it made men, women, and children sick. So we screwed up there. The Ladakhi government had to shut down Stoke, which is still shut down. It started 3 years back with like, oh, we'll open after 2 years. It's not going to be open for another 2-3 years. That's how I think it's going to happen. Now it's the same thing is happening in Zanskar River. It's just over trekking. It's great from a community point of view that more and more people are experiencing this. It's great. It's great from a business point of view, because you are able to take more people. But what's happening is that two things. One, we are putting so much pressure on the environment, it just can't take it, and it's pushing back. It comes in the forms of avalanche and glacier melting and snow melting and just everything that was not our intention. And then the other thing that's happening is that, because I know of a colleague who went on a trek and he put his photographs on Instagram, I also want to go. And you know what? I'm just going to hit the gym, and I'm going to put on some muscle. I'll do biceps, and I'll do some chest and some legs, and मैं पहुंच जाऊंगा. But I'll bring the best. So access to really good trekking gear from companies like Decathlon and Wildcraft. I can suddenly feel कि यार मैं तो ट्रेकर हूँ. मेरे पास कपड़े आ गए, 5,000 रुपए के जूते ले लिए, मैं जिम गया था, लेट्स गो. हम पहुंच गए बस चादर ट्रैक करने या स्टोक करने या कांग्यात से करने. यार, you don't do a 24, you don't do a half a marathon in the first time. यार, मतलब आप 5 किलोमीटर करते हो, then you do a 10, then you say, okay, you know what, I've done 10 kilometers 3 or 4 times, I think I'm going to train for a 21. यहाँ पे तो लोग 5,000 मीटर की पहाड़ी चढ़ने पहली बार ही आ गए. I mean, that's like the first trek, 5,000 meter. Why? अरे यार, I walk 7-8 kilometers every day. I run. This is also something that I've heard. I'm a runner, and I'm like, okay, I'm a mountaineer. Would you suggest that I go and run 21 kilometers in the first time? As a possibility, now you are a certified coach. Would you recommend somebody who has done Kangyatse and Island Peak but never ran in his life, कि हाँ यार अखिल तू जाके 21 किलोमीटर कर सकते हैं? नहीं, it's two different sport. It requires different training. There is obviously synergies. There are trainings that you can do that help each other, but it's two different sport. So I think that's what's happening in the trekking world. Too many people are going. There are hardly any regulations. We are killing the environment, and we are going unprepared. That's how I see what's happening in the trekking side. On the mountaineering side, बहुत अलग चीजें चल रही है बॉस. मतलब वहां तो two observations, and I'm only going to take names because that's how I see it. I'm not judging the person. When this movie came out, Conquering 14 Peaks or whatever that is, where the great legend Nim Spurja, he climbed the tallest 14 peaks in less than 6 months. That was supposed to be a marketing campaign. He was launching his adventure company that would take people to these peaks. And it was supposed to be, and he did amazing too. I don't even think that good response. What that is basically a race. Now everybody, every mountaineer, जिसके ख्याल में भी एवरेस्ट नहीं था, अब उसको लगता है अरे यार एवरेस्ट करने से मैं अपना बिजनेस चालू कर सकता हूँ. I can actually monetize by going to Everest. Okay, so let's see what will I do. What do I eat? I don't eat non-veg. I'm a vegan. So you know what? I will be the first vegan to climb Mount Everest from South Delhi. South Delhi or vegan का क्या connection है Everest से? I'll tell you the connection. Now that person will go to a company that makes vegan food, and they will ask for sponsorship.
Yeah.
Or they will go to their state government. First tribal uneducated girl from Chhattisgarh to climb Mount Everest. And I'm like, yaar, ये क्या चल क्या रहा है? मतलब that day is not far, Chetan, where you'll have the first, left-handed Keralite who has a tattoo of a barbell on the right hand to climb up. मतलब कोई भी permutations, combinations चल रहे, just that they can have Everest, बस. और उसके बाद then we will monetize. That's a very risky race. The second thing that I see happening is जो elite athletes हैं, people who have accomplished a lot, they are upping up the ante, and I don't think it is being done in the right integrity. I mean, I don't know if you saw it. I think we spoke about it. If you saw the video of, I don't know who the person is, and even if I did, I won't name them, taking a chopper to advanced base camp, acclimatizing 2-3 days at that advanced base camp, climbing the peak, coming back, and then taking the chopper back home. Yeah. Matlab, you're saying कि in a full marathon, I can run 5 kilometers, take a Uber taxi till 40 kilometer, 40 kilometer में मैं उतर जाऊं, 2 kilometer करके वापस आ जाऊं, and you're okay with it. And you're saying कि नहीं यार मेरा तो summit हो गया. अबे कैसे summit हुआ boss? How? Summit is you start from the point you can start walking, where your base का भी base. वहां से आपने चालू किया अपने खुद के पैरों पे, आप ऊपर तक गए, आप पॉइंट तक नीचे. if you are getting rescued after summiting, in my views, in my eyes, that is not a full summit. You need to walk back to where you started. The cycle needs to be complete.
Right. So this
emergency hai na, there's an emergency, so ask for rescue. I am all about getting a rescue, but then don't claim that you did the summit. I'll be the first one to say, you know what, I screwed up. I went to Stoke twice and I was not able to finish it. It has till today, it has left a scar, but I openly talk about it कि नहीं यार मैं गया था, मैं नहीं कर पाया, क्योंकि मेरे को मालूम है मैं एक ना एक दिन करूंगा. If I hide behind that mirror कि नहीं यार, हाँ यार मेरा तो हो गया था, dude, you told Chetan, but you know that,
when you look in the mirror,
there has to be integrity, and people are watching. We are watching you, boss. The young and aspiring athletes in the 15s and 20s and 25, they are watching these elite athletes, and they're like, this guy was my role model, but I don't think he's playing fair. What kind of role model, what kind of inspiration are we leaving them?
So, mountaineering, what started, let's say, back in the 1950s was this, the great explorations where people with minimum gear, like not even the modern gear that we have, but with the, sort of makeshift things. They used to go and, let's say, attempt peaks and try, fail and everything, to now, which is very, transactional. I think from what you're talking about, it has become very transactional, business driven, rather than still being an explorative sort of a sport, an activity that it used to be, or where it started. Is that what it has converted to?
Yeah, I mean, think about it this way. Earlier expeditions were sponsored by the country or by their army or by their mountaineering club. It was extremely selective people who would go and do that. Once the market has opened up, now more and more people more and more civilians want to go and climb these beautiful peaks, and it's great. I mean, it's not reserved for a few people, but the challenge becomes the monetary part, the budget. You need 50 lakh rupees or whatever it is to climb Everest. अब वो पैसा कहाँ से आएगा यार? I mean, you save for 10 years, you save for 15 years, so you have to bring in sponsors. Now, think about it from a sponsor's point of view. They're like, okay, you want to climb Everest? What's the big deal? 450 people climb Everest every year. How am I going to get those eyeballs? How am I going to get exposure to a 50 lakh rupee worth advertisement? So now they together come up with a scheme कि boss एक काम करते हैं, इसको ना एक अलग packaging करते हैं. So the example that I gave you of why don't you become the first vegan to climb Mount Everest? So this is what's happening. That's why you need money to come in, and it is great for the sport. It is great for the community and for the sponsor. But with money, there is that evil that is also coming in. That as long as you secured the money, यार पैसा तो आ गया, पहाड़ तो वहाँ है, मैं शायद इतनी practice भी नहीं करूँ, because that person is now spending more time raising funds. He should be running 21 kilometers or a half a marathon every weekend. Instead, he's flying to Delhi, Bombay to raise funds. Right. So, and there's really, I mean, I don't even have any solutions for it, to be honest. Because how do you stop somebody from going to Everest? The Nepali government is extremely happy. They're like, "Arey wow, 500 permits every year. That's 100 more than last year. We're going to make more money." Yeah. And so money is driving this what used to be a very selective activity. I don't personally have a fixed plan of how it can be fixed, but it needs to be fixed fairly soon before there is a complete stop on the sport. So regulators need to come in, and I'm talking about both from a trekking point of view of what's happening in Chadar. So if you read today's newsletter that I wrote, I shared 10 points of what can be done or should be done by the local government, by the trekkers, by the porters, and by the trekking operators combined, what they can do to balance the damage that's done and not repeat it. And the same thing can be done for the 7,000, 8,000 meter peaks.
Right. So it'll probably be good if if there's let's say these companies or these brands who try and sort of sponsor or get some eyeballs would be keen on funding expeditions in our range, in our mountain, in our country that have not been climbing. I think exploring those, making out new routes, I think that's going to be very good for the sport overall.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I did not think about this. I think if companies take the approach of exploration rather than bragging rights is where and it is not, you will get more people to watch, you will get more people to be behind you and build more trust in your brand if people take the initiative of exploration as compared to bragging rights. It's
right.
The audience is not stupid, man. I mean, they can see through why you're sponsoring this particular athlete and why you have created this nice packaging around X number of peaks in X number of days with X, Y, you know, ये जो formula आपने लगाया है सबको दिख रहा है क्यों लगाया है? आप जो कर रहे हो वो भी दिख रहा है, you know, the footprint that you're leaving behind on these peaks is वो भी हम सबको दिख रहा है. So you're right. If you sponsor athletes and say, hey, you know what, that's a unnamed peak or that's a unventured peak. Why don't you go and explore that, and I will fund that and I will film it and I will show it. That will bring more eyeballs.
Absolutely. Another thing, I think I'll probably before we close, I had another thought when I was going through, you know, what all we had to discuss, and what came to mind was that you obviously, I think you started with Stoke Kangri, you know, attempting that. I think that was your first that you were saying, and then you have trekked a lot, and then you have recently, I think last year you did the Kangyatse Do, and then the Island Peak. Trekking versus mountaineering, because now you're sort of moving more towards the mountaineering side. Let's say you're choosing one big expedition in a year, which is 10-15 days or more, and it's a mountain. Do you find, and it obviously mountaineering versus trekking, it carries a certain risk over trekking, let's say. So do you still get the same extreme joy, happiness, and fun out of doing a 6,000 plus peak, going through the process of training hard for it, pushing, or do you think that trekking was sort of still more fun, sort of easygoing, that enjoyable time sort of an activity where I used to be, you know, we used to just chill out, have a campfire, have fun. There was less risks involved, and, you know, go back home. Do you feel that there's a bit of a, you know, sometimes you feel like, yeah, is bari we'll go with something that's slightly easier, and then we'll just chill out for 15 days and not pull ourselves?
No, I've the group that I travel with, or that I trek with, or I do mountaineering with, we aspire to become better, and not just, I'm not talking about just altitude, the difficulty level. So we want to take on challenges that are tougher than the last challenge we took on, and that's how, you know, we have been able to progress consistently, and it has actually brought a personal transformation in each and everybody's life, from the point of dropping weight to the point of becoming better employees or business runners, to even taking on healthier habits like running and swimming and cycling. Because you know, we'll just relax this year, that cycle would break, and I think that's why, as a group, it's just our unsaid rule that, you know what, last year कांगयात से किया था, अब 6,000 के नीचे तो कर ही नहीं सकते. So, you know, you have to up the ante, or at least do something at that point, at the same level. So it's, you know, that's how we think about it. I think it's good to add a small trek of 3 days, 5 days, 6 days, if we get the opportunity, just so that, like you said, so that you don't have to have so much pressure on yourself, because a 6,000 meter peak, like you said, the training is hard. It's 6 months of grind, and you can't screw up. It's not just responsibility. You're also responsible for the group. One goes up, the entire chain breaks. So I like to up the ante every time I go to the mountains, but making sure that I'm ready for that challenge. So, you know, the preparation has to become better refined, and this goes back to what I was saying, that why we are constantly in touch with each other is because we are constantly sharing, constantly sharing our routines, constantly sharing what's working, what's not working. Hey, watch this video. In this video, did you see that crampon point? ये तब आएगा, इसके बारे में सोच के चलना, ये रात को 3 बजे आएगा, अपने को इस चीज का ध्यान रखना है. लास्ट टाइम कांगयात से में तेरे को बहुत नींद आई थी, मेक श्योर यू ब्रिंग coffee capsules with you. So it's just a constant a constant chat between the trekking group of how do we prepare for the next bigger challenge and how do we make sure that we complete it with complete respect to the mountains. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm out there trying to conquer anything. I'm just saying that there are so many challenges undone. I would like to keep increasing the intensity every time.
So I think just a bit to those people who may be watching who not to really put them in any sort of a category, but if you are one of those who go for a trek, let's say once a year, based on what you see on Instagram or a sort of a very pretty looking picture shared by your friend anywhere, and you're going, I think there's certain things that we have sort of had touched upon in this conversation that make sure where you're going, you're sort of prepared. Also, I think this point that you have touched upon of upping the ante every year, I think that will just make your experience of being in the outdoors much more richer. Because these experiences, you learn a lot. You will come back as a different person. There's certain, I think, sometimes when we put ourselves through some kind of stress, certain sort of hardships, I think they really bring the real you out. So I think meeting that person, meeting that new you, I think once in a year is going to be like a good thing, an exciting thing to sort of look forward to. I think that. Yeah,
you said you did it so well. You said it. Just one thing I want to add. I'm going to name the platform because we are on that platform. So these 60-second reels, right? When you watch that reel, the creator is trying to do its best to communicate something. And the only thing that they can communicate at that point is how beautiful that place looks. They cannot talk in detail of how easy or how difficult it is. So what you are getting is a 1-minute package of the highlight, right? If you told me, Akhil, can you introduce yourself in 1 minute? I'm only going to talk about the good stuff. I'm not going to talk about how I failed the 75 hard challenge. I'm not going to share I cheated on it and I screwed up. So if you're going somewhere, put that time and energy into read every blog, watch every YouTube video. Even if it is 1 hour long, watch it twice, watch it thrice, so that when you are there, you have just bought insurance. You know that except for the weather, I'm going to be able to take care of myself because मैंने ये देखा है, मैंने इसके बारे में सोचा है. आपने देख लिया कांग्यात्से का summit और यार, wow, it looks amazing. चलो. Why? Because in 1 minute, Akhil was only able to package so much. He was not able to show you the remaining, the difficult journey. So don't go by just that 1 minute reel. Make sure you read blogs like Trek Library. Make sure you go to the YouTube and you find and search every video that real trekkers have made. So you can paint a very nice rosy picture in 1 minute, but that's only because you can only paint a rosy picture in 1 minute. The entire picture needs 15, 20, half an hour. So, do that investment also.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a fantastic message, knowledge. This chat itself, I think for a lot of people is going to be like a source of knowledge, of information. So I hope people watch this. We'll put this on YouTube as well. Yeah, in a couple of days. So I think great conversation, Akhil Paji. Thank you so much for joining. What's the next piece that's coming out?
The next newsletter. Yeah. The next newsletter would be this coming Saturday, and that would talk about the breathing techniques that I am learning to become a better mountaineer, to become a better trekker. I'm going to share those with the community. And one announcement, I had 2 things to do. I had one confession to make. I already made that I could not complete my 75 hard challenge. It was a 75-day long challenge. I gave up on, I think, the 37th or the 36th day. I'm sorry. I'm human. I screwed up. And the announcement I wanted to make, Chetan, is that we have the blog up, we have the newsletter up, and then the next thing that the community would see in the next few days is a Trek Library podcast. It's going to be a audio podcast that would go on Spotify and all those beautiful channels, and then the video part would be and those so many important topics to cover that I think it's time to give our community another source or another channel of how they can consume the content. So they are able to read through the written word that I share, but I want to open it up more to conversations like you and I are having on video and audio. And I'm hoping that you will become a very regular contributor to that podcast.
I'll do my best.
Thank you so
I'll do my
much
best.
for having me. It's such a blast to talk to you. I always learn and I completely enjoy having a chat with you.
Likewise, same. It has been like that since day one, and I think that it will continue to be like that. Thanks. Thanks, Akhil Paji. Thank you.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Thank you, guys. See you soon.